Western Lake side. Stop interrupting me. I'm new at this. The joint board meeting for Sice Valley Fire and Westland Ambulance at 6 o'clock. Mary, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Mendolia.
Present.
Director Heppel.
Present.
Director Burns.
Present.
Director Polisi. Director Spade.
Here.
Director Russell.
Here.
Director Murphy.
Here.
Director Holbrook. Director Buss. And Director Webb.
Here.
So I've already done a great job getting us out of order. Can we all stand and do the pledge of
WLFEA.
We want to do the Pledge of Allegiance now. Okay. Can we do the WLFEA roll call, please?
Director Spade.
Here.
Director Polisi. Director Murphy. And Director Webb. Okay.
Here. Here. Polisi did say that he was going to try to join later as he's still dealing with some issues up in Portland. I'll throw that out there. So if we can all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance finally. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dina, do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
No, we do not.
That is fantastic. Let's move on to the presentations. We do have a presentation. Actually, let me backtrack. I really should put my glasses on. Let's talk about the recognition to somebody that personally I have nothing but the utmost respect for. Lori, can you come up to me, please? So I'm gonna move. So if the camera catches me, great. If not, I'll try to vocalize so everybody can hear it for the crowd outside. Lori joined us, part of the community support team. And if I'm wrong on the dates, it's Barry's fault. It was roughly March in 2017. And when we developed the program, we had what we call the chaplain program. And Lori's like, yeah, no, I'm not a chaplain. We're not going to do that. So fast forward about 4.5 years, not only did she create a new program, but it's only funded by the county, which is the Mobile Crisis Response Unit. So we want to recognize Lori for what she's done the last 4.5, almost 5 years, because we're losing something that's very valuable in an interim period, because she's going to stay with us being the clinical director and oversight. Is that correct? Clinical oversight for the program. But we feel it's important that we recognize Lori for the time that she's done from a little program to a much bigger program that's actually providing a huge asset to our districts, being both districts, and to the community members as well. So we got some beautiful flowers. Chief is jealous because Chief is a flower guy.
Well, I won't share them.
Don't, no, they're yours. And a little appreciation award. We just want to say thank you for everything that you've done over the last 4.5, 5 years to develop the program that you've done.
And thank you for all your guidance with it, because you've heard me out many a time. So.
Thank you. Jacob, you're up. You want to go?
Yeah.
Next thing
Thank
is
you.
Do an update for strategic planning to the boards, please.
Thank you, Chief House. Directors, thank you for the opportunity to come and check in on a strategic planning project that I hope you're all aware of. The direction I've been given is to provide some updates and provide an opportunity for questions that you may have. So my name is Jacob Collister. I work with the Lane Council of Governments. Both West Lane Ambulance District and the Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue are member agencies of the Lane Council of Governments. So there was a rather natural relationship there and connection in reaching out for some help related to some strategic planning about, gosh, it's been almost a year, but really got more serious about 9 months ago. And what I want to do is share just some information here on some slides. So let me know if we're seeing that.
Yep, we see it.
Okay, thank you, Tina. So really the purpose of the project as it was framed in the original scope and as it has proceeded is to provide an overdue updated strategic planning process for the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority and its associated districts. In this process, we have a designated steering committee of directors, Director Burns, Director Polisi, Director Webb, Director Murphy. Also on that steering committee are Chief House, Chief Schick, and Dina McClure. We've been able to check in with them several times and had some really great conversations recently. They have provided some wonderful steering to the process, and I appreciate their support and participation. I'm going to essentially outline first off the process that we have mapped out and show where in that process we are presently, and then share just a little bit of detail that's emerging. We're at a pretty important point right now where we're really ready to just take information and start drafting the first draft. That's an exciting step in these processes because you can put something onto paper that then can really be scrutinized even further. But it's kind of a fun step to feel that you have enough information to at least draft something. The process really is has a heavy component of facilitation and engagement. So this slide is intended to provide you with a look at some of the engagement that we've done to get insights, to get some buy-in to the strategic plan, and also get a sense for where some of these stakeholders are at. So we engaged with employees and volunteers from both West Lane Ambulance and South Valley Fire and Rescue in 2 separate work sessions. So both of those included both districts. And we had good participation and good conversation. Those were 2-hour dedicated work sessions addressing these specific areas. So first was a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, as well as some conversation about core principles or guiding principles and core values. And then we had some conversation to look at some of the previous strategic plans, goals, and objectives, and to kind of just discuss them at a conceptual level. We also engaged partners, key partners, and community members. All of the work done to essentially constitute these groups was completed working with staff to identify who those key partners would be and other participants in that work session. We were also able to meet with the steering committee twice and have a total of about 4 hours of interaction of really, I thought, very productive conversation and discussion about some of these kind of key components that feed into the strategic plan. Another important piece was a survey that was conducted. The survey was related primarily to the consolidation and merger. We'll call it a strategic planning consideration. And so we were able to take some information from that survey and fold it into the considerations. At this point, although we've completed steering committee work session number 2, I've kind of included it in an active component right now, which is that we're in the process of drafting the strategic plan, and that going forward, the remaining pieces really are just to iterate initially with the steering committee and then bring that to the board and iterate with the full board of directors on feedback related to that. I don't know if this is hard to see where you're at. Maybe those with their desktops in front of them can see it better, but this is essentially a schedule. Those things in gray are the things that we've accomplished at this point. The item in red is essentially some work we need to do to summarize our last steering committee work session and this process. And then this meeting, of course, is something that we're working on right now. The things in green are the things that we have on our horizon going forward. We'll be looking over the holidays here to complete some drafting of the strategic plan. As soon as we can in January, we'll release a draft plan. That'll be something that the steering committee will put eyes on. We'll have, hopefully in February, the opportunity to present that draft plan to the board. That will be submitted to each of the board members. And then there'll be an opportunity to have a board work session where the board can work through the items and their questions and feedback. This schedule anticipates a March or April adoption, that at that point we'd be able to, maybe there'd be some iterations to dial it in, but that by early spring, there'd be an adopted strategic plan for WLFEA. So a couple of just things, that's the schedule, that's what we've been doing. A couple of things to just touch on generally that I think are meaningful for the board to hear is by means of update. We've had this, what we've called a key strategic planning consideration. The outreach that we've done has not been primarily at all about consolidation and merger, but we've framed it in all those outreaches as a key strategic planning consideration. So we've welcomed thoughts about it. We've welcomed insights. And the way that we sort of framed it in those meetings is that there's been this continuum of working together between the two districts. That dotted red line that you see is this very vague sort of assumption about sort of where along the continuum the districts are presently, and that there is this movement to the right to ultimately consider more and more of these questions around consolidation and possible eventual merger. So this is sort of a visual of the concept here, that these are the previously existing strategic plans for the individual districts. And then there was an IGA implementation plan that was put in place in 2017, 2018. And the kind of foundation for this has been the idea of essentially bringing these together into a WLFEA strategic plan for the next 5 years for WLFEA. All of those strategic plans have a strategic planning framework in common. And this is a very common sort of strategic planning structure where you have established vision statement, an established mission statement. You have initiatives that sort of organize high-level themes. And then you have goals and objectives. And objectives are really where specific things are accomplished, tracked by who's responsible, timeframes, and ultimately those are the action items. One of the original well, here's how those are set up currently, right? Every one of both the districts and in a certain sense, WLFEA itself has its own kind of vision, mission, initiatives, goals, and objectives. Early on, one of the ideas that was sort of emerging was that, well, the vision and mission for both of those districts in the previous strategic plans are very similar. Those are things that a step forward could be combined. The initiatives could also be combined. They're very similar and they could be rearranged. Goals and objectives maybe need to be distinct, perhaps. What we heard from the steering committee was very clear direction. And I think, frankly, for what it's worth, I think is a good move. It's taking advantage of this unique strategic planning opportunity for the next 5 years, was combining all of it with a focus on operations as opposed to organizations. So what we mean by that is not necessarily that there wouldn't be goals and objectives that are specific to, say, fire or to EMS, but that the WLFEA strategic plan for the next 5 years would perhaps at some point early in this plan acknowledge the obvious distinction of the districts, but that going forward with those goals and objectives and initiatives, there would be a sense that we're going to focus on the operational distinctions, not the organizational distinctions, which I think is great because it's very consistent with the one mission, one team concept. And so this is the direction that we've had to proceed with the structure of the strategic plan. And so that's an overview of the sort of timeframes that we're at, as well as a little bit of a peek on some of the structure of the strategic plan. We're going to be drafting that plan, and then there'll be opportunities to iterate on that over the next few months to dial in some of the details. One of the other pieces of direction we got from the steering committee was to work closely with the chiefs, Chief House and Chief Schick, and with Dina to iron out some of the details for efficiency's sake, and then we'll move forward with what emerges in January. So that's the update on the strategic plan, and I'm happy to take questions, and maybe the steering committee can help with some of those questions if you have them.
Yep.
Jacob, this is Director Spade. I got a couple of questions. SWOT, what does that stand for?
Oh, that is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. Okay.
So you talked about the partner and community members were in a work session. What partners, what community members are involved in this?
So let's see, Dina could probably help me with this. I should have had a slide for that. That would have been smart. But we had people like Peace Health. We had some of the state agencies that you work closely with. So the Oregon State Department of Forestry. We had, I think, the Corps of Engineers was involved in those. There was a bit of a distinction between government partners and then this kind of customer component. So you had key folks from the business community. The port was involved.
And we had the City of Florence, Dune City, Hospital, Coast Guard. We really tried to reach out to as many stakeholders as we could, and we got a really good response.
And we have, for each of those, there's a summary that's been provided, and that's information that we could certainly make available right now to the board, which is the summaries of those outreach engagements, which lists the participants.
I think it's interesting that we have the coordination of the rest of the community, and I think it's really good. Yeah, I'd like to see some more information about who's involved in that, just so that we know who our friends and foes might be in the future, so that we can
sure
direct our directions where we need to go. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? You're sharing the screen. If you can unshare, and we can see if there's any other questions that are on the Zoom meeting. But as of right now, there's no other additional questions from in person.
I'll just really quickly want to thank the steering committee, and the staff have just been really super helpful in this process. So it's made it very seamless. Appreciate that.
It's my mouse. Don't think we have any additional questions. Nobody else is jumping at it. With that, thank you very much for the update, Jacob. All right, moving on to the next agenda item is the consent agenda. Does any of the directors want anything removed from the consent agendas, which would be meeting minutes, staff reports, or correspondence? Anybody online want to talk about anything in the staff reports or have anything pulled?
Nope.
Great. So I'm going to jump over real quick to onboard so I can get my call volumes. This is where we'd have really good commercial music. Yes, ma'am.
Why are you doing that? Because I introduced my replacement.
Please, yes.
Okay. David here on the scene, he's going to be taking over as coordinator and stuff.
We can't hear you.
I'm introducing David.
Okay.
New coordinator of SVFR.
vision report.
Chief House, do you want me to go over the financials while you find that information?
No, I have it. I'm sharing it right now.
Okay.
Well, actually, I don't need to share it. So EMS continues to be on track with higher call volumes than year-to-date fiscal year, and same thing with fire. Fire continues to have below average for fire response, and general service continues to be the highest calls other than for rescue. Fiscal year to date, EMS is 196 calls above any other year, and with a total call volume of 231, which is good. The blaring news is the transfers are continuing to be higher, but our no patients are minus 25 compared to the previous year. So that's showing that we have more transports, which equals more revenue. And then when we look at the budgets and the fiscal actual versus budgets, it's showing the same thing. Any questions on call volumes? Now we'll jump over to you, Dina, with the monthly financials.
Okay. Last month, Director Webb, you asked me to change the acronyms in the financials. Have you seen the changes, and are they more descriptive?
Yes, I could understand what you were doing now, so I didn't have to think.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're seeing a lot of the property tax revenue coming in. We're close to 70% for both districts, and it will probably continue to come in pretty strong through December. Over the last few months, the Western Lane Board has approved some expenses that were not in the budget. They include the hands-free CPR devices, the AccuBane finders, and if approved tonight, the cardiac monitors. I will be working on a supplemental budget to move money from contingency, so you will see that on the agenda in the next month or two. I will also present a supplemental budget for Siuslaw Valley for contingency to cover the costs of the full-time firefighters we hired this year. Before I open it up for questions, I want to touch base with the directors to consider attending the SDAO conference in February. It's a great conference, and many of the sessions are geared towards being a director. The pre-conference sessions on Thursday, February 10th are very informative for new board members and a great refresher for others. We have a room block being held at the Graduate, but if you don't want to attend in person, there is a virtual option. I've heard from directors Russell, Webb, Murphy, and Polisi. So please get in touch and let me know if you would like to attend either way. We would be happy to make the arrangements for you. With that, I'll take questions on the financials.
This is Director Spade. I've got a question on page 18, item 8700, grant expense.
Okay.
Question is, we budgeted $550,000 and had spent none of that. What's the sequencing of the expenditure of that money over the year, fiscal year?
Let me pull that up for you. So the grant expenses that we budgeted for, we were hoping to get the grant for the rescue engine, which was 95% grant funded in the amount of $427,500. The 5% match for that was $22,500. And then we always put $100,000 in there for future opportunities. In the event a grant opportunity comes up during the fiscal year, we would have some money set aside for whatever the match we would have. But at this point, it was all for the rescue engine.
So you don't know the status yet on the rescue engine?
We did not get the grant.
We didn't get the grant. So we have something else in the mill. So
not for the grant, which that's how it's budgeted, is if we receive the grant and we're able to use that as a purchase for the capital. So then it cycles back into capital funds.
Okay. Okay.
Is that correct?
No expenses so far. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hearing nothing else, nothing online. No, move to old business. This is 2 action items for both Western Lane and Sisa Valley Fire. Resolution 2022-2105 for Sisa Valley Fire and Resolution 2021-06, and both of them are approving the proposed transfer of operation employees to Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority for effective July 1, 2022. So at this time, we open up for discussion or for a first and second move forward with it.
Questions on behalf of the Sisa Valley Fire and Rescue? I see Miss Heppel's not. Sam?
Yes.
Any questions? Okay.
For Western Lane, I have spoken with, I guess he's called Director Dr. Holbrook, or Director Holbrook, and he is he voiced to me his feeling that we should move forward with this, just so you know where he stands. And you know, it can't count as a vote because he's not here, but I thought you'd like to know his opinion of it. Does anybody else have any? So can I hear a motion on Western Lane?
I would make a motion to move forward proposal 2021-6, approving the proposed transfer of operational employees to WLFEA as of July 1st.
Murphy, second.
Mary, roll call please for Western Lane.
Yes. Director Russell.
Yes.
Director Murphy.
Yes.
And Director Webb.
Yes.
Thank you. President Burns, would you like to entertain a motion?
Yeah, thank you, Chief House. As President of the Sisa Valley Fire and Rescue, I make a motion that we approve the proposed resolution. Do I have a second?
Second by Spade.
That was second by Spade.
All those in favor, respond by saying aye.
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 Aye. And if Mary, if you want to take a roll call, go ahead.
Okay. Director Mendolia.
Yes.
Director Heppel.
Yes.
Director Burns.
Yes.
And Director Spade.
Yes.
Motion resolution approved, Matt.
Okay, for both presidents, we'll have the resolutions that of course will need to be signed so we can make it formalized.
Oh, ask a lot.
No, I'm sorry, I try. Moving on, if there's nothing else with that topic, moving on to new business is an action item for approved purchase of the cardiac defibrillators. In the Western Lane Ambulance and Sisa Valley Fire board packets, I put in a competitive bid package as well as action items. Did everybody get a chance to review it? Is there questions on the direction that we're going with it?
No questions. I think it's just smart business.
Just for fun, what happens if we don't do it?
If we don't do it?
What would the status of the district be with the equipment that we currently have?
So the MRXs they're entering the end of life, meaning that we're getting to a point where we can't find any replacement pieces to fix them. Tom is in the room too, and he'll maybe address this a little bit more because he's been dealing with all the technical aspects of it. But so I think the timeline is sometime next year, we're going to run into that wall.
And these are critical to your ability to do the job.
So the cardiac defibrillator monitors is, other than personnel and apparatus, probably the most single piece of equipment that we use.
So I would make a motion to approve the resolution.
Mr. Polizzi.
Hi, guys. I'm here. Sorry for being late.
Point of order. This is Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority. Vote on that now.
There's 2 different ones. One for Western Lane Ambulance, which is for $303,000. That's the action item. And then one for Sisa Valley Fire, which is roughly $50,000. It's just the header for Western Lane Ambulance.
But it comes under Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority. So is that to be voted on by the WLFEA board instead of the 2 individual boards?
If we're talking about the letterhead that I put it on?
Well, just the whole thing there as far as talk about at some point of combining these 2 entities. Is this one of the first things to do that?
Right now, it's a capital purchase, and the way that it's set up, each capital purchase would come from each district. So we haven't moved that completely over to down the line. The capital purchases would be singular through WLFEA. But right now, SIUS law, the request is for roughly $50,000 to buy one of the monitors plus 1/7 of the cost of the PM maintenance and QI, the quality assurance and quality quality insurance and quality improvement package that comes along with it.
But man, what I'm saying is to delineate who's paying for what as far as
yes, SIUS Valley Fire will be purchasing one monitor.
And that's listed here as the
let me pull it up on the
it's listed in your packet under it's on page 60. And for
page, sorry, what is it?
On page 60.
60. Okay.
For 50,000.
That'll be the SIUS Long Valley agenda item. The Western Lane is on page 58 and 59.
So I have it up on the screen, and I'm going to try to share it as well. So this is the SIUS Valley Fire. We didn't have anything appropriated to buy monitors for capital, so we had to come to the board for appropriation for it. And it comes out to be $49,674.88. And this is the purchase of one ALS, the cardiac defibrillator, which is everything we need to do to take care of a routine call to somebody that's in cardiac arrest. When we moved our engine to an advanced life support engine, this monitor is a critical piece of the component to do that job. So looking at both districts, with the radio project that we've been working on, it opened up roughly $440,000 in capital funds between both districts. That's the funds that we'll be using to pay for the monitor upgrade. SIUS will pay $50,000. Western Lane is going to pay $303,000 off the top of my head without looking at the agenda.
Okay.
I will second Mike's motion.
Okay, so Western Lane has a
question.
Sure.
Okay. So this wasn't budgeted for originally. So I guess my question is, it's an important piece of equipment. It comes in a life. Do we track that type of equipment? Do we know like critical equipment? If we know that it's coming up, and then we can make sure that we're prepared to replace it?
Yeah, great question. We do. We have a capital replacement improvement plan as well. And generally, the rule of thumb is cardiac monitors last about 10 to 12 years. That's their half-life. Like medic units last up to 300,000, depending on wear and tear. So yeah, we do track them. We also have software called, we call it Operative IQ. And all of this is put in there. So it tells us when we purchase it, when it's been serviced, when we've had the preventative maintenance on it. So we track all of that as well.
But this wasn't budgeted for.
It was not, because when we were budgeting on Western Lane ambulance side, and then when we saw the opportunity and we enhanced the fire side at the same time, we saw the opportunity that, well, fire's got this capital monies available because of the radio project, Western Lane does, and so that's where I did it, kind of a double agenda to make this work.
Okay, great, thank you.
You bet, great question.
So can we call for a roll call vote on?
Yes, and repeating this, Mike Webb made the motion for approval and Director Murphy seconded. Mary, can we have a roll call for Western Lane Ambulance, please?
Yes. Director Russell.
Yes.
Director Murphy.
Yes.
And Director Webb.
Yes.
On behalf of SIUS Valley Fire and Rescue, their passage of this, what is it, 50,000 or 49,000 some change?
According to the agenda, we have 49,000, almost 50,000.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion by Polisi.
Thank you. Second?
Second. Spade.
Thank you, Sam. All those in, Mary, you can take a roll call.
Okay. Director Mondolia.
Yes.
Director Heppel.
Yes.
Director Burns.
Yes.
Director Polisi.
Yes.
Director Spade.
Yes.
Thank you.
we seem to have a little interference going on with some of the audience. If everyone in the audience can mute yourself, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I think that's a future director.
All right, moving on to director comments. This is the opportunity for directors to comment on any topics that are not on the agenda. Director Murphy?
Would ask Cindy and Director Burns sometime after the first of the year to put an agenda item on for both boards to discuss how we are going to have boards of directors after July 1 of 22. If we're going to increase WLFEA, since all of our employees are there, are we going to have a 10-person board for those WLFEA meetings? And just
good
so we
point.
can get it all sorted out ahead of time with everything else.
Any other comments or questions from the directors?
Director Spade, I've got a question. Yesterday, I was down at the FDC and I saw a sign up that said that WLFEA was having a meeting down there that I didn't know anything about. So I went down and walked it, and Fire Marshal Tony Miller was having a group session there with some of his people. And I talked to him today about that it would be really informative, I think, and helpful if the board of directors knew when those events were being held, even though it's kind of not the big cheesiest thing, but down a working level, so that we could just stop in if we got the opportunity and say, hi, I'm the director, one of the directors, and just for morale and for the people that are down there doing the job to know who the directors are. And I think that needs to be published to the board of directors.
It's a really good point, because we do that with the training.
Right.
So I think
about some Kyle stuff.
Yeah, I think what we could do is add it to, like, we're trying to develop a newsletter that's sent out, if not monthly, quarterly, and we can capture these events that we know of ahead of time. So we'll bring this back to the admin team and work this out. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, I'd really like to really know some of the guys and gals that are out there doing the job every day, and be able to interface with them more than I do.
Good point.
Also, Chief House, I've been going to the senior center for different meetings lately and gotten a big screen TV in there, and you're able to do presentations. I know that in the past when Al was with us, that we did a lot of community education, and I'd like to see us get back into that, doing education on falls, heart attacks, strokes. And I think that would be a great venue to do it in, because I'll have a great big screen so we can do the PowerPoints and also the videos that Al and I used when we did those talks. And I know they're very much appreciated.
It's a great venue. We've done it several times in the past. I think this goes back into the newsletter too, that they have reached out to me and we're setting up some things in the future.
I'm glad you brought that up in our steering committee strategic planning meetings. That is one item we talked about for probably 20 or 30 minutes, community education.
Yeah, because I went with Al on several occasions, and the public, even now, they walk up and say, I remember when you did the talk, and I remember what was talked about, and that we offered this education. So I think we need to get back on that force again.
Director Polisi has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to apologize for being late, folks. Almost done up here, but I apologize. And if I need to take action on anything, or you folks need to fill me in on something, please do so. But again, I apologize.
Don't apologize. Take care of yourself and your family.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that.
You have good news, right? You want to share the good news to everybody?
Well, yeah, we're coming home Saturday. She finished all of her chemo treatments, all 7 of them, which is apparently pretty remarkable for this stuff. And tomorrow are the final 2 radiations, but we had a little curveball thrown at us tonight. So we'll deal with that tomorrow. That I'm not very happy about, but I'm sure I'll get my chance to vent it.
Look forward to
thank you for all the support.
Last opportunity for any other director comments. You're not seeing none online. Next future business is the regular joint board meeting, January 27th at 6 p.m. And we can take a motion for adjournment. There will not be any executive session due to Chief doing his civic duty as a juror candidate at Lane County.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Lane's moved to adjourn.
It's really good to see everybody, and I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
You too, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Ditto, sir.
Thanks, guys, folks. I'll talk to y'all soon.
Anything else? Then we're adjourned.
Sounds good. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays.